Tonight, fears of chaos in our skies. Firefighters threaten an Easter strike. Developing tonight, a new attack launched by Israel. The target, a hospital in Gaza City. Saying goodbye, a heartbroken family joined by the Prime Minister to remember a brave Australian soldier killed in a parachute training accident. And the AFL finally names its 19th team, but the Devils in the detail.
The latest from 7 News with Tim McMillan.
Let's start tonight with what could become a disastrous Easter holiday period for thousands around the country. The Airport Firefighters Union has put the plan for a strike to its members. Let's bring in Tom Saker now, who's at Sydney Airport. And Tom, do we know yet if this strike is going to go ahead?
Well, Tim, it will depend on the ballot cast by the United Firefighters Union, the results of which were supposed to be in this afternoon. They could potentially decide the fate of up to 7 million Australians taking to the sky this Easter period, but the results are not yet in. The union is threatening to go on strike on Thursday, March 28, the day before Good Friday. Just 10 days away, and if history is anything to go by, these types of dispute are not resolved so quickly. The reason that the union holds so much power is because these firefighters are an essential part in case an emergency does happen on the tarmac at airports right across the country.
And Tom, why is the union threatening action at what is such a busy time for everyone?
Well, precisely because it will cause maximum pain, maximum disruption to a lot of passengers. And that's the way the union thinks it can get what it wants. One of those things is a 20% pay rise, but Air Services Australia is offering an 11% pay rise over 3 years. The other major thing the union says is understaffing. It believes that staff fatigue and less staff is leading to more fatigue and therefore greater unsafety on the tarmac. Those passengers, however, whose safety might be at risk, might not think that this move by the union is so popular at such a busy time. Tim?
No, I'm sure they won't. Hopefully they can sort it out before then. Tom Saker, thank you. Mortgage holders are holding their collective breaths tonight. The RBA met today ahead of tomorrow's interest rate announcement, and the news might not be what they're hoping for. Experts are telling us we may not see a rate cut now until next year. The bank is apparently concerned we're still spending too much, and there are fears that'll only get worse when millions of us get a tax cut come July. Let's go to developing news now. Israel has started a new targeted attack in Gaza. The latest from Israeli army officials is that it's hit a hospital because militants were firing at soldiers from there. Let's go to our Europe Bureau Chief Hugh Whitfield. And Hugh, there's already pressure on Israel over this war. Now a hospital has been targeted and we're hearing already multiple casualties.
Tim, some 30,000 people are sheltering at Shifa where these attacks are happening. There's panic and heavy gunfire in the area. The hospital is Gaza City's largest. Officials there say the building that's been targeted carries out specialist surgeries. Palestinian health authorities say the attack has caused a number of casualties, but haven't said how many. It's likely too early to tell. The Hamas-run ministry claims fire broke out at the entrance to the hospital, causing women and children to suffocate. The Israeli military says this is an ongoing, precise operation, claiming the trigger for this attack is a tunnel linking the hospital to an underground bunker where weapons were found, and it claims senior Hamas leaders were using the hospital.
Our war is against Hamas, not against the people of Gaza. We seek no harm to the civilians that Hamas is hiding behind, which is why we will conduct this operation with caution and care, while ensuring that the hospital continues its important functions.
The Gaza Health Ministry says communication in the area has been cut. The hospital in Gaza City is one of the few remaining in the besieged enclave. The Israeli military has long accused Hamas of using it as a base for fighters. And we can tell you in a separate development, there has been Further conflict on the Gaza Strip in the last few hours. This story, of course, will continue developing throughout the evening. The other top story out of Europe tonight is, of course, the Russian election. The capital seems to be operating as normal right now, while the president ponders an extended 6-year term as Russia's leader. In the past few hours, Russia's Central Election Commission made the result official, confirming Vladimir Putin received almost 90% of public support. We'll have more on the latest soon. We'll be asking an expert if this election result can really be trusted. Of course, here in Europe, there is widespread scepticism. The best pictures tonight from Europe are being delivered from the island of fire and ice. That, of course, being Iceland, which is experiencing perhaps its most harsh volcanic event yet. These lava flows have been erupting since a volcano came back to life after centuries of being dormant. Tourists head there for the incredible heated springs, but have been forced to flee when even the Blue Lagoon came close to danger. The lava is expected to keep flowing for days. A spectacular sight, Tim, but you don't want to get too close.
You certainly wouldn't. Hugh Whitfield, thank you. Federal Parliament was delayed today so politicians could join those remembering Lance Corporal Jack Fitzgibbon. He died early this month in an army parachuting accident. Hundreds came today. His family paid tribute to a beloved son and brother.
March 6 was the worst day of my life. We are so very proud of him.
Little brother, for over a week now, I have been a big sister whose life will never be the same. I cannot possibly imagine my life without you, brother, but I know in my bones that you will always be with me, walk beside me, watch over me and protect me.
Jack, there is nothing like a mother's love, and I will love you and miss you with all my heart.
The 33-year-old was a trained parachute commando, but his chute failed to open during a training exercise less than a fortnight ago. A number of inquiries are underway. Well, tonight a task force has been put together to hunt down whoever's behind a hit and run in Sydney's East at the weekend. The victim was Mitch East, a well-loved 28-year-old lawyer. He'd apparently stepped out of an Uber early Sunday morning when he was run down. Police are hunting whoever was driving this white Subaru hatchback. A horrifying balloon ride over Melbourne early this morning. 10 people were on board when one suddenly fell hundreds of metres to his death. They'd only been in the air for about 10 minutes. He landed just metres from homes and peak hour traffic. His death is not being treated as suspicious. A former swimming teacher is being hailed a hero after pulling 3 men unconscious from Victoria's Apollo Bay. Brianna Hurst says instincts kicked in when she was told the men were in trouble and she pulled them out one by one. Sadly, though, a 26-year-old man didn't survive. Government paid parental leave is being bumped up. New laws have passed through federal parliament. Let's bring in Rob Scott in Canberra. And Rob, we're a step closer to a lot more paid parental leave.
Yeah, we are indeed, Tim. The legislation passed the Senate today, and what that means is that from the 1st of July, the 20 weeks of government paid leave available to parents now will gradually increase by 2 weeks a year until it reaches 26 weeks in 2026. And when fully rolled out, this scheme will deliver an extra $5,000 for about 180,000 families each and every year. The changes have been well received by unions and by businesses who say they'll make Australia a fairer country and will also raise workforce participation.
Families will be able to start claiming this from next week. You're allowed to pre-claim if you're going to have a baby past the 1st of July. You will receive the extra week. So this is a very, very important change.
Labor now plans to add superannuation to the scheme from July next year.
And Rob, a little trouble while Parliament was sitting today. What happened there?
Yeah, some very vocal pro-Palestinian protesters interrupted question time in the House of Reps this afternoon. They were yelling things like ceasefire now and shame on you Albanese, guards rushing in to restrain them and usher them out of the public gallery, but not before they got their message across, drowning out the Attorney General's comments.
The Attorney General has the call. Life-changing impacts for thousands of Australians, from people with disabilities.
At some point, the message needs to be heard. He needs to hear what the people have to say.
And Tim, they were eventually thrown out of the chamber and out of Parliament House altogether.
A big legal win for cab drivers and those financially hurt when ride-sharing companies like Uber started up in Australia. In the nation's fifth largest settlement, Uber has agreed to pay $272 million. Now, the matter was to go to trial, but today Uber changed its mind. There are more than 8,000 who are part of the class action. How much they get will depend on how much they were affected.
It strikes a fair balance between obtaining certainty for group members and delivering on the primary task that they gave to us, which was to get not a set of talking points, not a set of findings, but a result for them. What the settlement cannot do is to bring back the industries in the days of yesteryear. Ride-sharing reform and the legislative reform that occurred between 2017 to 2020 has occurred, and there's no going back. I think the message that this settlement sends to Uber and ride-sharing companies is about the importance of the rule of law in this country and the importance of class actions. I don't think there's any getting around that the firm's costs in this case will be substantial, likely to be in the order of $30 to $35 million.
The deal brings to an end a decade of legal fights. Well, it might feel like it's a way off, but come 2032, Brisbane will be hosting the Olympics. That's 8 years from now. But just how the city will handle it all is still a work in progress. Jackie Robson reports.
Good evening. Well, this is where the Queensland Government says will be the new home of the 2032 Olympics. Suncorp Stadium to host the opening and closing ceremonies. It was announced today just as a highly anticipated independent review into Olympic venues was released. Former Lord Mayor Graham Quirk spent 60 days poring over 900 submissions recommending a brand new stadium should be built in Victoria Park in Brisbane's north. Parkland to be transformed into a 55,000-seat stadium with a lasting legacy, but with a price tag of $3.4 billion. The best alternative after the controversial Gabba rebuild was scrapped.
You can do a top-level Tier 1 stadium that will serve the city and the region for a long time to come.
But the Premier quickly dumped that plan, claiming it was a waste of money. Instead, they'll fix up Suncorp and the Queensland Sports and Athletics Complex in Nathan. Stephen Miles today admitting they'd already been working on this plan well before the independent review that he ordered was released.
I don't see how I could have justified pouring another $1 billion into the Games funding envelope.
The government has agreed to a new Brisbane arena in the heart of the city and multiple regional venues, but with an election looming in October, we could see a new Olympic plan all over again.
Thank you, Jackie. The name, Guernsey and logo of the AFL and AFLW's newest team has been revealed. But their participation could be delayed depending on what happens at a state election this weekend. The competition's 19th team will be known, perhaps not surprisingly, as the Tasmanian Devils. They're due to make their debut in 2028, but there's a huge question mark hanging over all of this. The current Liberal government's agreement with the AFL comes with the promise of a new stadium, a new more than $700 million stadium. That now hinges on the vote this weekend. If Labor wins, it says the deal is off. So it would be back to the drawing board with the AFL. Stay with us. This is the latest from 7 News. Still to come, a senseless attack on the car of a disabled driver doing the right thing. That and more. You're watching the latest from 7 News. A Jetstar flight bound for Bali has been forced into a dramatic mid-air turnaround, and it was all because of an abusive passenger. The captain made the call 2 hours into the flight today. Jetstar says the woman became increasingly disruptive. As you can see there, she's apparently accusing other passengers of stealing a phone. She was eventually restrained, but not before ranting and swearing. We're told the crew members were so rattled they couldn't continue flying today. Passengers on board will be on a new flight tomorrow. Well, if we weren't already paying enough, now the cost to send a letter will jump by 25%. From next month, Australia Post will lift stamp prices 30 cents for a standard letter to $1.50. And in another blow to online buyers, more retailers are starting to charge for returns. Online shopping makes up nearly a fifth of our retail spends. Well, the pictures we're about to show you will infuriate drivers. Lucy Murray has the latest from Perth. And Lucy, we all worry about our cars getting damaged by doors or keys in car parks, but this appears to be really a low and deliberate act.
The target is a disabled person, Tim, an amputee who's had a 4-year health battle. She was parked in a disabled bay in Joondalup in Perth's northern suburbs when this happened. A man with keys scratching the paintwork. First it was the passenger door, then the bonnet. A car dash cam recorded what unfolded. The owner, Nicole, is devastated. She spent her savings on the large car as it fits her wheelchair.
Yeah, we had a nice dinner and then come back to someone destroying our car that we went through so much to get. It just feels like life keeps kicking us while we're down.
Heartbreaking to watch, isn't it, Lucy? Those pictures were broadcast in the news at 6. Has there been any fallout so far?
One thing we should confirm, Nicole says her disabled sticker was on display, so no suggestion she's been targeted for wrongly parking there. Instead, she says she doesn't know the man and has never seen him before. The latest from police tonight is they're investigating and want to speak to the man caught on camera.
Hopefully they find him soon. Lucy Murray, thank you. Well, Europe and the world is reacting to the official election result from Russia tonight. Vladimir Putin is lengthening his reign. Voters over 3 days delivered a record landslide win for the president, giving Putin a 5th term in office. That's another 6 years in power. Putin won 87.8% of the votes, and the 71-year-old will overtake Joseph Stalin as Russia's longest-serving leader in 200 years if he completes the new term. Joining me now is Professor Matthew Sussex from the Australian National University. And Matthew, 88%, that is a convincing win. But can we trust this result?
No, we definitely can't trust this result. It's often said that the dictators, the size of their victories is directly proportionate to how much fear they have of the electorate. And I think this is probably the case for Putin. Last time around, he managed to do 77% in his favour, this time 88%. And some places like Chechnya, entire regions, 99% in support. And we know that this is a phony democracy, and we know that there's ballot stuffing, there's video and photos of that available. And there's also evidence from overseas voting, where Russians have, said to journalists, "This is how I voted," and yet the results have come out overwhelmingly in Putin's favour.
Yeah, not a huge surprise, is it? What does this mean for Russia internally and also on the world stage for the next 6 years at least?
Well, internally, it gives Putin another 6 years, so he'll be 77 by the time he finishes, with the option to be acclaimed rather than elected again. And I think, things, frankly, are going to get even more grim for Russians. The trend certainly has been the killing and the marginalisation of dissidents, particularly those not on the ballot box, like Alexei Navalny. And the whole election was really just about one question: do you support Vladimir Putin, or do you not? And the answer was, frankly, even if you don't support him, there's nothing you can do about it.
And Professor, in terms of the war effort in Ukraine, there's been a real fear about conscription in Russia. This latest win for Vladimir Putin, what does it mean for conscription for Russians now going forward?
Yeah, well, Russia has had 2 to 3 shadow mobilisations, which it's needed to basically raise about 400,000 mobilised troops to replace the 350-odd thousand they've had killed or wounded in Ukraine. The worry is that, having been re-elected, Putin will now start listening more closely to his generals, who have been saying we want total societal mobilisation. And already the Russian government is spending about 40% of its overall spending on the military. With another safe 6 years, it may be that Putin decides to ratchet up the mobilisation drive on Russian society.
Yeah, nervous times ahead. Professor, thank you.
Thanks so much for having me.
Still to come tonight, your national weather forecast, then St Patrick's Day on the streets of Dublin. Our final frame takes an interesting twist. Stay with us. You're watching the latest from 7 News. Let's take a look now at how tomorrow is shaping up. Starting in Brisbane, 29 and a shower or two. Sydney and Canberra both 28, 30 in Melbourne and showers developing. 29 degrees the top for Hobart, some rain in Adelaide, a sunny day for Perth and 28's partly cloudy in Darwin. Taking a look at our regions, a rainy day and 30 in Cairns. Showers and a possible storm in Wagga Wagga, tops of 19 for Mount Janini. A possible storm in Shepparton, a windy one in Ceduna and Woomera, 26 and sunny in Bunbury, and in Katherine 37 with the chance of a storm. Tonight's final frame, a touch of St Patrick's Day from Ireland. It wasn't Guinness all day, as you can see from this parade through the streets of Dublin. St Patrick, of course, made an appearance, always a crowd favourite, but then after that it got a little bit odd. Some dancing lampposts, roller skating seagulls, some chips, and then a bunch of red-headed musicians all wearing the same jumper. A little strange, but it was St Patrick's Day after all. That's our final frame tonight. Thanks for your company tonight. From the team, that is the latest. I'm Tim McMillan. Good night.